Hello, my friends. Today, activity across the entire front line remains intense after Trump announced yesterday that he plans to meet with Putin post inauguration to discuss the situation in Ukraine. Zelensky responded by expressing his strong desire to secure safety guarantees this year and bring an end to the war.
It's crucial for us that peace comes. We want peace more than anyone because we are the ones suffering the most, especially in terms of human lives. But before reaching any agreements, it's essential to ensure these are serious security guarantees. Guarantees that will not only protect Ukraine but also all of Europe. Guarantees that Russia will not return with aggression, as it did after the occupation of Crimea in 2014 and the partial occupation of Donbass in 2015. Back then, we were promised a ceasefire and a frozen conflict with the claim that Russia wouldn't escalate further and diplomacy would prevail. But Putin lied. Eventually, he launched a full-scale war, killing thousands, tens of thousands of people. Today, it's critical that the US, with its strong stance on weapons, its economy, and as a nuclear power, applies pressure on Russia and provides Ukraine, along with Europe, the kind of security guarantees that ensure Putin, or anyone after him, can never again wage war against Ukraine. This is something we've repeatedly discussed, and it's vital that we all stay informed and understand the situation. Putin's goal has always been to completely destroy Ukraine. This is a fact. It's his dream to occupy and annihilate us entirely. We must not believe otherwise. Therefore, Ukraine needs security guarantees so robust that he can never return with war. It is our dream to secure these guarantees and end this war this year.
Clearly, there is hope that the war could end at least within this year, yeah. With only 10 days left until Trump's inauguration, one major issue is making headlines. Today, there is a significant attention on Trump's ambitions to make Canada the 51st state, purchase Greenland from Denmark, and negotiate control over the Panama Canal with Panamanian officials. Trump recently released a propaganda video in which Greenlanders were shown expressing their desire to join the US. According to Denmark's public broadcaster, DR, homeless individuals were allegedly hired to appear in the video in exchange for dinner at the hotel where Trump Jr. stayed during his visit. Additionally, residents were given hats that said "Make America Great Again." Meanwhile, Greenland's prime minister has expressed readiness to negotiate with Trump about control over the island. Political analysts are raising alarms. If Trump openly disregards the territorial integrity of other nations, it sets a dangerous precedent for Putin, with whom he is expected to negotiate Ukraine's future soon. Meanwhile, the Russians continue the active assaults on Ukrainian soil. Today we'll start with the Pokrovsk direction where the situation is worsening. The Russians have managed to capture the village of Solone and are now advancing toward Udachne. They've already breached Kotlane and are attempting to push across the fields toward Udachne. This is deeply concerning because such maneuvers gradually encircle Pokrovsk. At the same time, assaults from Zvirove persist, with the Russian forces pressing on the outskirts of Pokrovsk and attacking Zelene, Lysivka, and Sukhoi Yar. In the Myrnograd area, battles continue for control over the villages of Promень, Myrolюбівка, Yelizavetivka, and Baranivka. Although the situation remains extremely challenging, no significant changes have occurred in this area so far. In the Kurakhove direction, despite the Russians having fully captured Kurakhove, the front line hasn't collapsed for them. While they're making slow advances, the Ukrainian forces have managed to hold the line for several consecutive days, preventing further breakthroughs. However, assaults continue on the villages of Zaporizhia, Novoandriivka, and Andriivka, as well as on Dachne, Constantinople, and Rozliv. The Russians are also attempting to advance across the fields near Konstantinopolsk, but thus far they have seen no success. In the area of Velika Novosilka, Russian forces are amassing reserves for future attacks. Today, they are conducting limited assaults on the village of Vremivka. Apart from this, shelling continues, but there have been no changes along the front line. In the Zaporizhia direction, shelling persists, but no offensive actions have been observed. It appears that Russian forces are not allocating additional reserves to this area, which has led to maximum stabilization and a noticeable lack of activity. In the Kherson direction, Russian forces continue attempts to break through to Zabich Island, but have made no progress. The situation has remained unchanged over the past day. Now, turning to the Toretsk direction, Russian activity is high. They are once again assaulting Sherbinivka, advancing along the railway line and nearing the town center. Battles are also ongoing on the outskirts of Toretsk, accompanied by heavy shelling. While there have been no changes over the last 24 hours, reports from the Ukrainian forces indicate a worsening situation. The situation is escalating rapidly as the Russians attempt to capture Sherbinivka and Petrivka, aiming to encircle our garrison and force a retreat from the remaining Toretsk agglomeration. The Russians are advancing at a concerning pace, leaving only one strong defense position, the Toretsk mine. Intense battles are expected for this key position, although the Russians are already trying to bypass it from the west. In the Chasiv Yar direction, Russian forces continue advancing toward the Novopivnichny microdistrict. They're also attacking near the city center, making progress in Stupachki and moving through the fields toward Bila Hora. While the front line remains unchanged over the past 24 hours, the Ukrainian forces report minor Russian gains. In Chasiv Yar, the Russians are simultaneously achieving limited success near the remnants of the Klishchiivka bridgehead and the fireproof materials factory. Losing both of these strongholds would result in the complete loss of the city and a fallback by 3 or 4 kilometers. However, let's not rush to conclusions or give in to despair. Our soldiers know what they are doing. The Russians have also advanced in the private sector to the north of Chasiv Yar. Like Toretsk, little remains of Chasiv Yar, yet the city's defense has persisted for over a year. In the Siversk direction, battles for Bilohorivka continue with ongoing shelling of Verkhnyokamyansk. Despite this, there have been no changes over the past day, and the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks. In the Liman direction, the situation is much more challenging. Russian forces are once again attempting to expand their controlled territory near Ivanivka. Recent reports indicate they are now pushing toward Zelena Dolina after failing to advance toward Kolodeze in recent days. However, the Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks, and the front line remains unchanged over the past 24 hours. In the Borova direction, the Russians are advancing toward Boguslavka and assaulting Nova Krugliakivka. They also attempted a two-side maneuver near Zeleny High. The Russians are also attacking Kopanki and advancing southward through the fields toward Chernyshina, Rakivka, and fighting near Makiyivka. Despite these efforts, no changes in the front line have been reported within the last day. In the Kupiansk direction, Russian forces continue the attacks on the villages of Zapadne and are also assaulting Kucherivka and Petropavlivka. However, they have achieved no success and the front line has remained unchanged over the past 24 hours. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians haven't demonstrated significant activity and the situation remains stable for now. Meanwhile, fighting persists in Vovchansk, where Russian forces are once again attempting to advance toward the village of Staritsa. Despite their efforts, the situation remains unchanged. In the Kursk direction, Russian and North Korean forces continue their counteroffensive but haven't achieved any new successes. They were unable to cut off the advance near the village of Pokrovsk and are now attacking near the villages of Novoivanovka and Makhnovka. Despite their efforts, the front line remains unchanged over the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, President Zelensky stated that Putin and his people must feel the pain of this war.
The problem with Putin is that unless he feels pain, and this is crucial, it must be painful for this war. Painful and costly. He must feel it, and so must his people. They need to understand why they shouldn't launch a new wave of war. It must be clear that it will be incredibly painful if, God forbid, they take such steps. If we were to simply sit down at the negotiating table today and hand over territories to Putin, he would just rub his hands together and say, okay, let's prepare. We need a year or two. He would think to himself, we need a couple of years, and we'll come back with a new wave. He will definitely target Europe. Look, he wants to go down in history as the man who takes lands, who has a state that no one can defeat. This is his sick ambition. It's a fact today. That's why we constantly emphasize, you cannot simply give in to Putin. Security guarantees? Yes, they are necessary. But you cannot just acknowledge the occupation of territories. It's clear, you cannot legally recognize those territories. Otherwise, you will continue moving on to other states. You will see it. God forbid, but you will see it. That's his goal, to completely influence the European continent.
And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.